Hey everybody, this is the Uncle Zed. Hope you all had a great week. First, I'd like to thank everybody for your support, both on all of my pages out there on social media and downloading my podcast. I hope it's making sense to you all. Really like to get your feedback. Hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just give me your comments. Today, I'd like to get into what we're all mixed into or embroiled in, which is government. Our United States government. Just want to give you guys my thoughts on what's going on. Been around for a while and I've seen many a president, so I'm not speaking as a Democrat. I'm not speaking as a Republican, independent, or anything. I'm not pulling one party or the other. I'm just commonsensical, trying to put my thoughts out there and let you guys know what I think and see if you guys agree or not. Again, not pulling any party or any one person. I truly understand what this election was about in a couple of different ways. One, I believe, and I was part of this group, in that the politicians that we've been electing time and time again have promised us the world, yet they haven't delivered but percentages, small percentages of what they promised us. So this election, as a number one cause, I think, was a big FU to the establishment by people by voting who we voted into office. Now, I, for one, do not agree with the electoral college and gerrymandering. I think that's the biggest crock of BS that I've ever heard. And as far as an election, I think it should be whoever gets the most votes wins. And you know who won this one, as the Bush-Gore elections proved to be exactly the same. So, having said that, I truly understand why people would not want to vote for the establishment, whoever it was, rather vote for somebody that's outside the establishment. Unfortunately, of however many 19, 18 candidates as Republicans that were out there, this one particular person was chosen. And I believe this one particular person was chosen due to the fact that he was a businessman and supposedly a billionaire running his business. And we all thought, well, get a guy in there with some experience in business. After all, government's a business. And let him run with it and see what he can do. Well, been about a year now. And I don't really see things happening the way I believe we all thought it was going to happen with this guy in office. And I'm speaking to the 60+% that now have been polled as not really liking this choice. And I'm not necessarily talking to the 30 some odd percent that are still, for some reason, stuck on this person, thinking that he's the best thing since sliced bread. I believe the other 30%, a large majority of them, are within the 60% of non-approval. They're just too afraid to say, I made a mistake, which is okay. Making a mistake is all good. Problem is, we made a mistake that's now affecting everybody's life. I'm sure you've heard of the tax plan. Just Google it, look it up. Look up Trump's new tax plan and what is it going to do to me? Just type that into Google. The fact that he's endorsing what we believe to be a child molester, and he himself has 19 women who have come out and said that he has molested them. He is on tape, whether you believe it or not. It is true. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the misinformation that he feeds and then turns it around and says it's fake news. He himself has admitted that he's done this because he is rich and important and he can get away with it. Well, guess what? We're seeing that people cannot get away with it, which brings me to my second point. So let's tie a couple of things together here that have been happening in the news. And let's just give you all a what if. So what if popular vote won and a woman took office? Doesn't necessarily have to be Hillary. Let's pretend it's just a woman and she took office. In this instance, it was Hillary, and she did have a good chance of winning. And for some reason, through gerrymandering and whatever other process, it wasn't to be. Now, you might think to yourself, a woman in office? Well, think back a year ago. Who was in office for 8 years? A black man. In my lifetime, I can honestly tell you that in America's temperate climate, I never thought I would see the day. And it happened. Good, bad, or indifferent. 2 terms. Just like Bush Jr. Good, bad, or indifferent. 2 terms. So the guy must have been doing something right for him to get reelected. A black man. Now a woman had a chance. And for whatever reason, that wasn't to be. I don't know if it's because people out there thought she was evil, she was too connected, that her husband had some sort of influence. I don't know. All I know is that when her husband was in office, things seemed to be a whole lot better. Whether he was a predator sexually or not, I don't care. They try to impeach him. We'll get into that in a little bit because a lot of people have been commenting about impeaching in the things that I've been posting. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But getting back to this woman that could have been president, maybe your thought is that she didn't have the balls to be president. She didn't have the power. She's a woman after all. You know, our idea of a woman, or most people's idea of a woman in this country, is make dinner, wash my clothes, and do what I tell you. It's just been that way for a long, long time. So what are we seeing today? A little thing called #MeToo. You tell me how much power women have these days when they get together and they decide to do something. This something is a horrible something that they're fighting, but they were able to get together, form a group, and magnates of the industry have been kicked out. People that thought they were untouchable. Across the board, every single aspect of our society has been touched by this. And who's responsible for bringing it forth? Who's responsible for being the person that shows their face, that isn't ashamed to say this happened to me? A woman. Wow. And unfortunately, who's the people getting tagged? The weirdos, the men, the one that think that they're in power and they're rich and they're important and they can go ahead and grab a crotch and nobody will say anything or do anything. And that, my friends, is who we have leading our country, in my point of view. He fits into the Weinsteins of the world, just in that matter. He's admitted to it. Now, being the president and getting back to all the comments that I've been getting about, everybody keeps throwing around the word impeach like it's going to happen and the guy's just going to go to his office, grab his keys, put it in his backpack and walk out and say, I'm done. Well, again, I ask you to look it up. Get onto Google, type in, how does a president get impeached? And you'll figure out that it's not like firing somebody from their job. It wasn't too long ago that they tried doing that to Nixon. They were not able to do it. He quit. He did not get impeached. There have only been 2 presidents in the history of our country. Jackson and Bill Clinton, who were up for impeachment. Not too long ago, Bill Clinton. Type in Bill Clinton impeachment, look it up in your Google bar, and see what came out of that. $60 million worth of investigations for nothing, because impeachment is not something taken lightly in this country. It takes a lot to impeach. The House and the Senate have to agree. There has to be a majority vote. There already has been a vote. And surprisingly, 58 votes were for. That's a big chunk, people, for the first year out. They want this guy out because they realize what's going on in the background. What's going on in the background is what went on with Clinton. If you guys remember, when Clinton went through his troubles, all of a sudden, younger kids thought that a very intimate sexual action was not considered sex because the president was touting, I did not have sex with this woman. I only did XYZ. Well, that in turn turned a whole generation into believing that sex meant penetration and not anything else. Well, guess what's happening now? What's happening now is that kids are learning that denial will allow you to keep going, but admission will get you in trouble. As we've seen, the people that have admitted that they have done things in the past, even before they became senators or became a public figure, that are now affecting their jobs to the point where they got fired. All of them. The minute they admit. But, like this guy in Alabama trying to get voted in, he is denying. And now, a rapist that's in office is going after a child molester to take a seat because he's better in that office than a Democrat. I'm sorry, friends, that just does not make sense to me. Things are getting a little too twisted. So, what is it that's going on? What the hell happened? How did we get here? I'm hard pressed to really figure it out, and I don't think we ever will. We could just go by what I said earlier. I understand why people were pissed off, and I understand why people voted this way. I truly do. I was on the same boat. I was in the same boat, believing exactly what you guys were attempting to do. I just didn't think that was the best choice, only because I had known the history behind this guy, and evidently nobody bothered, once again, to look it up. Type into Google, Trump's foreclosures, Trump's bad investments. Where's Trump getting his money? And I'm speaking specifically about him because this is who is our president, and this is what this week's subject matter is, our government. And our government is led by our president. He's not our leader. He's our president. And yes, we do have the power to impeach and to get rid of him. But like everybody else in history that's committed crimes, and you can Google that too in your Google bar, the Teflon Don back in the day and others, they weren't caught for their crimes. They were caught for tax evasion. Something to do with money. Go figure. Capone, geez, how many people did he kill? He didn't get caught for killing people. He got caught for tax evasion. He eventually died of syphilis in jail. Again, look it up. Type that into your Google bar. How did Capone die? How did Capone go to jail? You'll come to figure that out. So yeah, impeachment is not something to be taken lightly. The whole world's looking at us, first and foremost. And I don't think we want to throw that out there like we just do it for every president that we're pissed off at. No, we work with them. We try to understand where they're headed. We try to understand what their plan is. We try to understand what their achievements are. So it's been a year. Tell me of any one of those things that I mentioned that makes any sense to you today coming out of this man's mouth, or his cabinet for that matter, because his cabinet already recognize him as a moron. They've said that to his face. Believe it, because where there's smoke, there's fire. And if you hear it, I bet you it happened, especially something that deep. Tillerson telling him he's a moron? Yeah, I can believe the guy saying that. Look at him. He's a guy you don't want to mess with. He'll tell you what he's thinking to your face. And you got a dose of it. What the hell was going on the other day with his speech where he's slurring all his words? I got that on my webpage. They're talking about doing a medical check on him. Well, who's going to check him? Dr. Seuss? His doctor? I mean, Jesus Christ, look at the guy. I seriously doubt he's even a doctor. I seriously doubt this dude's even been checked. Hell, he won't even hand over his tax returns. Now Deutsche Bank handed over everything. Guess what? Follow the money. They're going to figure this out. They're going to figure this out real quick. I mean, in a week's time, in a day's time, there's so many things that I could bring up that this guy's done that just does not make sense. One day he says one thing, the same day he'll say something completely opposite to it. The following day he'll say it's all a lie. So it has everybody confused. I don't even know how a history teacher can teach history these days and touching anything in modern day as far as today's presidency and trying to explain what's going on, because I don't think anybody knows. We're just kind of floating around right now trying to figure these things out. And this guy's not helping any by doing things that just do not make sense. So I remember watching a video where Kucinich was with him, and Kucinich was saying that during the time that they were in the debates, that Trump walked up to him and says, hey, if I win and I vote you vice president, will you do what a president does so that I could just cruise around and do whatever I need to do and campaign for 2020 so we can keep this thing going for 8 years? I know I saw that interview. I'm desperately trying to find it. It's somewhere buried in the internet, and I will find it and I will post it, because it was basically telling me what's happening today is what he told Kucinich back then. I mean, to have Kushner handle everything? Who the hell is this guy? What kind of experience does he have? Who in his cabinet has any experience whatsoever in government and how it works and what you need to do, other than just dumping money here and there? This is not a way to run the biggest business in America, which government is. Think about it. All government is a gigantic business with many, many arms out there, and it's trying to support its people. Taxation was supposed to be temporary, yet it keeps getting reviewed. Every year it becomes more and more and more complicated to support this gigantic business. So we pay every single dime of anything spent within government. And I don't see our money being spent very well. What I see is a person that's hooking up to the dark side. Duarte. He loves Duarte. Again, type in Duarte from the Philippines in your Google. Look it up. Figure out what kind of guy this is. Figure out what he's doing to his own people in the Philippines. For God's sakes. Might as well be Syria. Just killing their own people. And who does he hook up to? Duarte, my buddy, doing a great job. Putin and all his cronies. Of course. I've been saying all along. Been saying this from day one. I guarantee that once they get to the bottom of this, they will figure out that the only way this guy is surviving and flashing all of his gold and talking about being a billionaire is by getting money from another country. United States is too smart to give him money. This is a person that's gone broke with 3 casinos. Again, get your Google bar out, look it up. Who that has ever owned a casino has gone broke? I'm sure that list will be very short. And up at the top, your president. Such a good businessman that 3, not 1, 3 casinos, a place where people bring in buckets of money and hand it to you. He went broke. Don't care about the economy, don't care about Atlantic City, blah, blah, blah. If the guy was smart enough, he has a casino built, he could move it. He could make a deal with the true Americans, the Indians, and perhaps put his casino in their land. But no, he went broke. So how many times do you go broke before you need a loan and you turn around and nobody's willing to give you a loan because they realize that you're just going broke every time you turn around because you suck at being a businessman. If you didn't, I would imagine at least one of those casinos would still be alive and making you millions of dollars a month. Again, you're just too stupid to run it. So now we expect them to run the country as a business without anybody ever looking at, did he run his own business as well? Hell, Mark Cuban, yeah. Multi-millionaire, dude just making money hand over fist because he's smart enough to keep his businesses going. He doesn't need no loan. He's got his money in the bank because he's smart. He knows business. And I'll bet you if you threw him in there like you did Trump, it'd be a whole different ball game. Because you know what? He wouldn't be disrespecting people like this does every time you turn around. I'm not going to shake Angela Merkel's hand during a meeting. I'm going to step in front of everybody to take a picture. So this guy's this brand new cop with a shiny badge and a brand new gun, just like we saw a video of a kid getting shot 5 times for doing absolutely nothing. And that brand new cop with this brand new little shiny gun and badge walked away from it just the other day, yesterday. This happened last January. Again, look it up. Type into your Google bar. Cop that killed a kid in a hotel last January. And you'll see the video. That's how this guy's acting. Just like a cop with a shiny badge and he wants to go busting ass everywhere he turns around. Well, he does not know what's going on. He has no clue. For God's sakes, he's mentioned people that have been dead over 100 years doing a good job for him. I mean, how retarded do you have to be to not even look up something before you open your mouth? Sessions sending out letters to every single jail saying that the new immigration policy is to hold everybody for 48 hours. Well, half the cities that he sent those letters to don't have a jail. They didn't even bother looking that up. So it's not just him, it's his whole cabinet. They're all just spinning around trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And luckily for us, we have all of this media that we could just keep banging at his door and asking questions. Because if you don't ask questions, it's just like if you hadn't voted. Or like some stupid lady I saw on TV during election day saying she didn't want to vote for anybody, so she wrote in the word God. She voted for God because only God could help us. Well, she just threw her vote away. So if you didn't vote or if you threw your vote away, shut the up. You have nothing to say. Nothing. Because you didn't take time to vote. Or you threw away your vote with something stupid. You had 3 people to choose from that made sense. Or you could write in somebody that made sense to you. God's not going to come down here and help you. A person is. Hopefully a person with some sort of experience in government that knows how it runs, that doesn't have to learn on the fly and make mistakes time and time and time again. I mean, in one day, 7 different things happen that are very important things that this guy just doesn't seem to grasp a hold of. And I can go day by day. There are sites, and I will post them, that will tell you what this guy's doing day by day and how many mistakes he's making. Sometimes on an hourly basis, whether it's opening his mouth, tweeting, or just not wanting to answer questions because he knows what he's doing is incorrect. So, getting things from WikiLeaks this week and needing a decryption key to figure out whether or not they hacked the DNC. Trump Jr. grabbed a hold of that. That happened this week. It came out. that all these documents are out there. They were just looking for the key to open it to see if they could use any of that information against their opponents. Russian operatives trying to get a hold of people in the office. I mean, he had Russian operatives in the White House that are the top spies for the Russians. No Americans allowed. As a matter of fact, only Russian photographers were allowed to take pictures, and they were the ones that released these pictures for us to see. Type it into your Google bar, look it up. It's out there. So, people that are in his cabinet, it's been proven that they've had contact with Russians. Again, where I truly believe his fountain of money is coming from. And that's why he's such buddies with the dark side. This week, surprisingly enough, a sexual abuser backed a pedophile. Not once, twice. Twice. Okay, that's kind of twisted, okay? Now, let's step back a little bit. The hashtag #MeToo movement. Wow. Who would have thunk? That takes a lot of guts. A lot of guts to do. And they did it. Now, as far as this Roy Moore thing, it's been thrown around, and I have it on my webpage, on all of my media that's out there. The Uncle Zed. Just look me up. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I try to post things for you guys that I'm talking about so you can see that there's something behind it. So, with this Roy Moore thing, it was said that, well, that's the way it used to be in the 40s. You know, my grandma got married at 13 and had a kid at 16. It was that way back in the day, too. It's probably that way in third world countries. You want to know why? Because back in those days, people's lifespans were very short. They might have lived to 40, 45. Again, type it into your Google bar and you'll figure out that 100 years ago, people's lifespans were a lot shorter than they are today. So they had the need to get married early. They had the need to have 10 children. Because out of 10 children, maybe 7 survived. And they needed those 7 to help them when they got older, to support them in a family structure. It all made sense. It's 2017, people. We're living to be almost 100. You can have a kid in vitro. There's science out there that can make you a kid, anything you want. Yet now it's okay for somebody 20, 30 years ago to have chased a 12-year-old in a mall where they have proof of this. There you go. Denial. He's denying it. Because the minute he admits it, he just lost. So he was smart enough, if you will, to deny, teaching our kids that denial wins. Admission loses. So now how many of you kids are going to be telling you lies because they're starting to believe that if the government can do it, because they hear it every day, whether you like it or not, they talk about it every day. I don't care if they're in kindergarten or 12th grade, you know kids are talking about this stuff because it's in their face every time they open up an electronic device or a TV. So now you're teaching them that lying will make it so you can get away with stuff, but admission will get you in trouble. Because look at everybody that admitted. They got fired or they walked away from their job. A little twisted. I mean, again, this guy not only is a known pedophile, but now he's arguing that the last time America was great is when we had slavery. And that homosexuality should be illegal. And he doesn't believe Obama was born in the United States. And he believes that drive-by shootings is a way to teach evolution. Think about that. I didn't say it. This guy said it. I have it right in front of me. He blames drive-by shootings on teaching evolution. one thing that I know for a fact that the black community in the United States believes. Why in the hell do we have a liquor store in one corner, a gun store in the middle of the block, and another liquor store at the other corner? Because they were wanting you to get drunk and shoot each other. And by process of elimination, you guys will go away. Started back in the days when Nixon was in office, and he took every single public program that helped African Americans or anybody of color or anybody of need and just stripped them down to nothing. I can distinctly remember driving through African American neighborhoods where there were parks and people were playing, and after that was stripped away, I saw kids chasing each other, throwing rocks at each other because that's the only toy that they had. What a shame. A whole generation hating not only government, but perhaps the white man for doing that. Can you blame them? It gets really deep. What's happening today on the surface sounds stupid, is stupid. You can see it by the way the results come in after this guy opens his mouth and does something or says something or tweets something or whatever he does. But it goes way deeper than that. People are being affected in ways that we're not going to see for years to come, and it'll reverberate over generations. I'm telling you. You really got to look at this and say, what did we just do? Because 60 some odd % of people are now thinking that way. And I guarantee that part of that 60% were people that voted for this man that now have come to the realization, much like the hashtag Me Too, they had the balls, for lack of a better term, to go out there and say what they have on their mind, be it that you're going to judge them or not. And they did it. And they got a reaction, a positive reaction, because people, I truly believe, no matter who you are, no matter what color you are, black, white, green, purple, you have a heart. And I truly believe that one human to another, we want to treat each other correctly and righteously. We don't want to fight. I mean, you guys see that on TV every day, all day. Whole countries being torn apart by their own people. Is this what's going to happen here? Civil war? I mean, how much more can we take of a daily barrage of moronic, unsensible things, and the end result of it almost seems as though it's a backlash more so of a woman or a man or a businessman or promises being made, but it almost smells of a backlash of 8 years of an African American in office. We'll show you, because weird as it sounds, the minute this guy came into office, never in my life had I seen Ku Klux Klan members just walking down the street with tiki torches and not covering up their faces like a bunch of chicken shits that they are, because they didn't want to get ID'd. They just went straight for it, man. It's like this guy's giving them full permission. Free for all, back in the Western days. Doesn't make sense. Just does not make sense. Doesn't make sense so much so that finally people are starting to realize that this guy may not be worth even visiting. Sports teams refuse to go visit him after championships. There was a museum, civil rights museum, that was opening this weekend. He said that he wouldn't speak there. Most of the participants didn't go, thinking that he was going to show up. It used to be a thing of pride to go see your president, to take maybe a picture of him driving by real quick. If you were lucky enough to get a picture with him or an autograph, oh wow, hang that on your wall now. Not so much. So upwards of 17 people, 18 people, something like that, maybe upwards of 19 now, since day one have left his cabinet for one reason or another. One douchebag Scaramucci that came in there, 11 days. I think people around him realized that this guy was a douchebag. 11 days. Too bad they didn't think of that as for the president, because Scaramucci is basically the alter ego of Mr. Trump. Again, get to your Google bar, look it up, Scaramucci, and just poke around. Poor excuse for an Italian as far as I'm concerned. Should have been on the Jersey Shore show. That's where he belonged. Certainly not anywhere near government. As you can see, people walked out as soon as this dude walked in because they knew he was a douchebag just looking at him. So he's surrounding himself like a fascist, a communist, socialist. Again, type in all those words in your Google bar, look them up, and tell me why Fox News says he's our illustrious leader. He's not our illustrious leader. He's our president. I'll go right back to that. Any other terminology used doesn't belong in this country, because we vote the person in. We have the right to kick them out. We just have to go through a whole rigmarole in order to do it, which is our checks and balances, part of our government. If you remember way back in the day when you studied all that stuff, it's all coming to light now, because now you're involved, whether you like it or not. You're going to get taxed more money. That's a foregone conclusion right there. They're using the trickle down. I've read it. I've researched it. There's plenty of information out there. Again, look it up. Type in your Google bar, Trump's tax plan, and read. And you'll come to find out who's getting screwed here and who's making the money. Who do you think he favors? Does not matter what comes out of his mouth. It's what he's putting into action that matters. Because he'll lie right to your face like he's been doing since day one. Because this man is not geared to do what he's doing. He's more geared towards making fun of people, knocking people down to make himself feel more important. And more importantly, he's thinking that he's running this country like a business. And you got to take a step back. It's not a business per se. There's too many arms, too many departments, too many people dependent on too many different things that you just can't throw things around like you would if you owned a widget making company, whatever. Bunch of hotels where you could tell people what to do, how to do it. Because there will be people coming out of here telling you how much of a dick this guy is to work for. Believe you me, I've worked for many of them. And he strikes me as somebody that's very, very difficult to work with. To work for, impossible. I mean, the minute that he gets backed into a corner, like when Comey started coming out with, we need more information to figure out whether or not you're involved with the Russians, what happens? He fires them. I've been working for people like that myself. You start bringing out things that are shortcomings or things that you were hired to do. They don't like what you're saying. They fire you. Because it's easier to get rid of you and get a yes man in there than to have to deal with, hey, this looks wrong. We should fix it. Or, hey, this looks kind of weird. I should look into it. That's kind of how you solve problems, you know, even in business. Even a mom and pop store will do that. And then we get into the tweets where every day it's something new. Obama has my wires tapped. Lie. Millions of people in my election. Lie. We saw the pictures. I don't know why this dude's still stuck on the Democrat. He's still stuck on Hillary. Every time you turn around, it's investigate them, do this. It's all deflection. He's a master of deflection. So he'll deflect anything that he can to make you think that whatever it is that you're trying to do, as in verify something that he's talking about, a new plan that he has, did somebody say something, did somebody do something, he'll deflect it. He's a master of that. Don't get deceived by that. Don't get deceived by false information that turns into fake news, because like I said, If you're fed false information and you report on it, exactly what you heard, it turns around and it becomes fake news. So he's setting you up for failure. If he's doing that to reporters, what the hell is he doing to the people that he's dealing with, like in other countries or people that work around him? So I have a long list that I'll post that's very interesting. But, you know, giving the guy a little bit of time to get used to this new office, new job. Let's just say we go into June, giving this guy about 6 months to get settled in. And what happens? Starting June 5th, he starts talking about the travel ban, starts stirring that pot up, talks about how he has to have a travel ban over all of these countries that, you know, of course, are harboring all of these terrorists coming in, which there's absolutely no proof of. They're all right here already. They're called sleepers. We've seen it time and time again. It's not people coming in. It's people that are already here. So that was a waste of time. Complete waste of time. Just chasing your ass to find your tail and giving you bad information so that they can report on it and he can turn around and say, well, look, they're all lying. He says, you know, they won special elections in June 20th. The ones that we want to make America great again. And we're 5-0. In these special elections where, in reality, they won 4 and the Democrats won 1. I guess he didn't have those facts in his head, or somebody didn't bother to tell him. So on and on and on. Right now, we're one of the highest tax nations in the world. He said that in June 21st, and we're definitely not. Fact check will check that for you. Oh, there's just too many things here. I just can't even pick from this list. It's just too huge. I'll just post it for you guys to see. It's just one thing after another, after another, after another. What I'm trying to get at is, again, I understand why people voted the way they voted. Made sense. It even made sense to me. It was like, why not get somebody in there that, you know, might have a head for business, and what he's talking about changing sounds like a good plan. Not going to be easy. It's not going to be overnight. We all knew that. But it sounded like it was headed in the right direction. Until the debate started, until the tapes came out, until this Russian probe started rearing its ugly head, until he just kept hammering the fact that somebody had emails in a server that really didn't mean squat in the end. It's not been proven to have done any harm to our country whatsoever. That's when you started figuring out, wait a minute. Even during the debates, it was kind of like, is this a game show or is this really happening? It was kind of confusing. But it was actually happening. And I mean, he conceded. He had conceded the election. Only to find out later that he was actually winning. From what I read, had he lost that election, his divorce papers were sitting right there for him to sign. And Malunka, or whatever the hell her name is, would have bailed out to wherever the hell she came from to get away from this dude. But unfortunately, she's going to have to be tortured in the tower for another 4 years if he lasts that long. Like Rapunzel. Because I did post something that says, hey, Miss Trump, if you had anywhere to go for Christmas, where would you go? Immediately out of her mouth came a deserted island. And with a little bit of pause, of course, with my family. So you know what she meant. As far away from this dude as possible. Just look at the video of him and her interacting. She cannot stand this dude like I cannot stand this dude. Like most people in this country cannot stand this dude. Yet we got to sit here day in, day out, and eat it. Don't think so. Now we got social media. We can slam his tweets. We could put out information. We can form groups. We could do special interests. There's so much that can be done. The one great thing about this country is that you have freedom to do all of these things. That's why we live here. That's why we came here as immigrants way back in the day, because we knew this country had the freedom of speech. What I'm doing right now. Most countries would have me arrested. Mine being one of them if I talk this much crap about our president. But you know what? It's my given right as an American to speak my displeasure as long as I'm not hurting anybody or threatening anybody, and I'm not. By far am I doing that. I'm just wanting to open your guys' eyes as to what's going on, and don't let this one just slide by. This one has to be caught and taken out of its misery. Otherwise, we're all going to suffer. We're doing it right now. I'm telling you, things are being geared up, and something's going on that if this guy keeps going the way he's going, we're in a world of hurt. The Cold War is going to seem like a picnic. Back in the days when we really were scared of the Russians because they had nukes and we had nukes. And we're both basically standing in a room up to our knees in gas, and one has 3 matches and one has 5. And they're just going, okay, you light it first. No, you light it first. No, you light it first. Well, we got away from that. Brought down the wall. Opened up some countries. Russia broke up. Became pretty much like America. They were able to make money. They didn't have to stand in line for bread. Everything seemed to be going okay. And then all of a sudden, Russia wanted to start claiming back all the little countries that broke off. And that's what's going on. They're trying to gather all those countries back to become a superpower. All the while using our president as a puppet to gain everything they can from their little ploy. And just when we're falling asleep or we're not paying attention, they're going to smack us with something that's going to make your head spin. They're going to try to take over the world. Sounds far-fetched and sounds like a movie, but you look at what's going on. I mean, absolutely, positively, no sense has come from anything that has happened in the past year. Nothing has been passed. Nothing. This tax plan still isn't 100%. It still may get jacked out. Nothing. He's trying to get this guy elected because that would be the only thing he accomplished this year. A pedophile into office. Okay? And then, worst of all, is having the people from this great state of Alabama being stuck in between this and being called names that I've never, ever would think of calling any other American. You guys decide on your own as to what's right and what's wrong. The rest of the country knows what's right and what's wrong. We're just waiting to see if you do. Because would you want this guy babysitting your kid? With what you've heard? I wouldn't. I don't think I'd want him watching my dog. He might pull out his little gun and shoot it. Because he's such a badass. Well, I guess he was a badass when he was 30-something years old chasing after 12-year-old girls in a mall. I mean, if that's not the sign of a pervert, what the hell is? God forbid you look at somebody kind of sideways these days. Man, you'll be down on the ground and you'll be slammed questions right, left, and sideways whether or not you're a weirdo. Yet this guy did it day in, day out. Like it was just, everyday ploy. District attorney, for God's sakes, doing it. So, if this guy gets caught, or if this guy, for some reason, gets tagged for something sexually, do we go back and look at every single one of those cases and revisit them because he was a pervert during the district attorney days? It's happened before, where people got busted and every single thing that they did in their career was looked at. A lot of things overturned because, again, it's coming from a mindset of a pervert. because that is not normal. I have nieces, nephews. They have kids. Never has that come to my brain as an option. Not to family members, but to somebody that age. That's just not right. And to say that you would rather have a person like this in office than a Democrat because of the seats tells you that the person is desperate to have somebody in there so that something can pass. Because this guy hates losing. Because much like Charlie Sheen, he's a winner. Those two are crackheads that should be married and living off an island with Duarte in a hut, chasing after some sort of rabbit to eat for the day, to learn what it's like to struggle a little bit. Because they're all the same. They could throw in this pervert with them too. Have him chase around something on a deserted island, because that's where they belong. And to see people's lives get ruined, Comey, the 17, 18, 19 people that have dropped out, people that might have spoken up and for some reason they ruin their lives. God only knows what's going to happen. As I've told you before on other podcasts, my second one, if you had a chance to listen to that, I'll tell you that I'm an immigrant, that I came here years and years and years ago. And one thing I know for sure is that October 1st of this year, all immigrants are being recorded on all sorts of media. So I hope somebody's recording this at the higher level. And I hope they come knocking on my door. Maybe I'll get more followers that way. But that'll just prove to you guys that the freedoms that are allowed you are little by little being taken away and being suppressed. Maybe they don't know how to handle all this media coming at them, because after all, these guys that are in office these days are getting up there in age. So they're trying to catch up. They're not in the middle of it like you and I are, where we know what's going on with social media and what's bullshit and what's not. You know, you can kind of make up your mind on that, and you can deflect that or not pay attention to that. Well, some of these older guys don't know that. They don't know how to catch up to it. They're getting blown away by it. And now with this sex thing where everybody seems to be pulling their pants down everywhere, which is a shame, they're just bringing to light everything that I, for one, thought I would never see. The rest of the world catching up with the Catholic Church. Hate to put it that way, but, you know, that was the first big $600 million settlement of men going after boys. And now it seems as though it's across the board. And they're willing to put one in office. And we're willing to have one as a president. Wow. Again, don't care who you voted for. Doesn't matter who I voted for. Doesn't matter what you believe in as far as your party line. Decency is decency. Common sense is common sense. I see both of those kind of walking out the door right now because people are just getting too into their party, their this, their that, and they're trying to defend something that's indefensible. You cannot defend stupid. And that's what I feel is going on right now. It's just out of control. People are lost. They're telling us that the news is fake. Something that all of us depend on a day in, day out basis. Now you got to wade through the BS, make up your own mind as to what you think is real and what you think is not. And if you start talking to your next door neighbor, your best friend or co-worker, that thought that you had may be completely 180 degrees from what they're thinking. Because they're lost just as much as you are. Because now, I mean, there's nothing concrete. At least a year and a half ago, when I listened to somebody that was our president 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 50 years ago, however long, when that person got on TV and spoke, you paid attention. Because he's the most important man in the free world. And whether you agreed with that person or not, At least you knew that they knew what they were talking about. They had a cabinet behind them that fed them that information, that knew what they were talking about. And the president followed a certain path of decorum, professionalism. Pretty simple. I ask you this. You own a business. Business is doing really well. And along comes somebody that's identical to who's our president. Would you hire him to run your company? Would you hire him or ask him for a reference to somebody to babysit your kid? With what you've heard the past week, I'd say the answer to both of those is hell no. No. Running my company? No. It'll go into the ground before the year's up, as has his. Any type of advice or anything that this guy would reference, I would think about 10 times, because he might be throwing you under the bus. So that's how I think the 60 some odd percent that do not approve of this guy being in office are starting to come around and think like this guy's just a con man. But I certainly hope that people take the time to inform themselves as to what's going on. Don't just hear and listen to the news and believe everything that you hear. Do a little bit of studying, do a little bit of lookup. It's real easy. Read the newspaper. Don't believe the hype that everything you're hearing and listening to is fake. Consider the source. There are plenty of websites that I'll feed to you guys through all of my media that'll prove what I'm saying is headed in the right direction. I don't claim to be perfect or everything I say is exactly 100% true. It's the work that I put in to try to weekly learn you guys about something that's going on that you may not be privy to, like Bitcoins on the first, like me being an immigrant on the second, like this one about government. Just trying to teach you guys something. Again, like I was your uncle, just having a nice chat, no argument. I wish you guys would put in comments, good, bad, or indifferent. I've been seeing a lot of likes, a lot of shares, but I haven't really seen anybody do anything as far as making a comment on something I put out there, even if it may be a little bit controversial. Because I'm trying to get a rise out of you, trying to figure out what are you guys thinking, so I can base my next podcast on it. Maybe follow up on this one. I'll definitely follow up on Bitcoin because it's going nuts. Which, by the way, do not invest right now. It's up too high. You don't go in at high, you go in at low. That's another podcast. So that's about all I got to say this week. I hope some of it made sense to you folks. It's just one person's point of view, but think about it rationally. Try to clear your mind of the barrage of things coming at you. Fake, not fake, real, from Russia, from Germany, from wherever. Gather that information. Filter out the things that you know are not true. Make up your mind as to what's going on. Then do something about it. Again, hope you had a great week. This is Uncle Zed, and I'm out. Hey, everybody. If you get a chance, look me up at The Uncle Zed on Twitter and The Uncle Zed Hour on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. Feel free to put in your comments. Post whatever you need to post. Zed out.